Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We are live with another segment for Muslim History Month. We're going live every month in May. I'm so excited to be joining you again today. I think it's always exciting to be active on a Friday, joining your fellow Muslims and learning something new. I've been learning so much since we started this program. Every day is something different, and I'm so excited because you just never know what you're going to learn. And every Friday it's a different subject, new something new to learn. So bear with me as we get ready for today's segment. I'm just trying to make sure that we're going to go live on Instagram at the moment. Okay, okay, because we are streaming across all platforms. So if you are watching, let me know where you're watching from, your country, what platform you are on. Are you on Facebook? Are you on YouTube? All right, let me see here. Okay, so I know some people might know what Muslim History Month is, and some people might not. So, welcome if you're new. If you're coming back, welcome back. It's good to have you. So, International Muslim History Month was founded in 2021 by the World Hijab Day organization and has officially been recognized by New York State since its inception. It's celebrated every May. This month is dedicated to tackling global Islamophobia by acknowledging and celebrating the powerful contributions of Muslims around the world. So, to commemorate this month, we are hosting a virtual conference every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, live on all social media platforms. We're on all social media platforms at World Hijab Day. So, we want to invite you to join us in marking this month, and you can share a simple social media post and use our hashtag Muslim History Month to do that. And so today's topic is Muslims and social justice movements, past and present. And we are joined by someone familiar today because she is part of the World Hijab Day organization, Nahela Morales. She is the co-founder of Embrace, a passionate public speaker and dedicated activist. She is currently pursuing her Master of Divinity in Islamic Chaplaincy at Bayan. So I'm super excited to have her. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here today.
Yes, it's so exciting to have you. And I know that this is something you're super passionate about, you're ready to talk about. So, and I think this is something really cool because growing up, like, I've always heard about people in social justice in like the US and everything, but not really kind of the Muslim side of it. So I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say. So obviously you're very involved in social justice, and but before we get into the present, I want to go back in time for a moment and ask you, how have Muslims historically contributed to major social justice movements in the US and around the world?
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanallah wa bihamdi wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Again, thank you for having me. Yes, this is something that I'm very passionate about. This is something that it is instilled in our faith as Muslims. I am grateful that it is part of my faith to actually stand up for social justice. So, to your question, Ashley, Muslims have significantly influenced social justice movement, both in the United States and obviously worldwide, globally. Here in the United States, we have figures like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was pivotal in advocating for civil rights movement and civil rights and the racial equality. And as for international, Muslims have also been very instrumental when it comes to activism. We have seen an anti-colonial struggle, such as, currently, yesterday was the anniversary of the Nakba, 77 years. It did not start October 7th, for those that are not aware of that. And then we have countries like South Africa, where leaders like Nelson Mandela acknowledge the support of Muslims, even though he was not Muslim himself. Communities that were fighting against apartheid. So we have had an extensive amount of individuals that have actually been on the forefront to advocate for social justice, not only here in the United States of America, but also globally. And these are just two figures that I can mention that perhaps um, are relevant or people actually know their names, right? We know that Malcolm X was a convert, like yourself, Ashley, and this servant of yours. And it was him learning about activism through Islam and what our faith actually says about standing up for absolutely everyone, including yourself, even if it's against your own self, right? As our the Almighty tells us in the Quran.
Yes. So, when you were talking, I was thinking about it, and I said, sometimes you don't realize, like growing up, especially like I grew up in the U.S. and I grew up in the South, so obviously like Islam is just skimmed right over in like history books and everything. But it's like people kind of we spoke about Malcolm X, but of course no one was ever going to mention his faith, that he was Muslim. If he hadn't been Muslim, then maybe my school would have, because when you live in the Bible Belt, that's how it is.
And
So
to add to that, similarly, today we're seeing that Palestine, the word Palestine, is being erased from our history books. You
yes.
can you can say a Palestinian, but you cannot say Palestine. They have erased it, and ongoing genocide is now the books. Our history books here in the United States say Israel. So this is something that perhaps a lot of people don't know, but I was part of a coalition where we were fighting for this, to not erase Palestine off our history books. And similarly to Malcolm X, they would never say he was Muslim. He was just one of our heroes, but not part of the fabric of Islam.
Yes. Unfortunately, the U.S., especially when it comes to history, they make a lot of claims, and a lot of times it's like, even with inventions, it's like, oh, so and so invented this and it's a white man, but usually it was an Arab who started it, something like that. And so it's really sad, but good for you guys for fighting for that. It's important. um, so in what ways are Muslim leaders and organizations involved in contemporary social justice efforts today?
So, alhamdulillah, I was just a couple days ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, actually. I was in Capitol Hill, and I was at the 10th annual National Muslim Advocacy in Capitol Hill. We were there for 2 days advocating for things that matter within our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been going for the past, I would say, 8 years. As a matter of fact, I would even take my son for him to actually see our responsibility, what we need to do as Muslims, and what we need to advocate for. So I thought it was important for me to read just a couple of the resolutions that actually would affect somebody like World Hijab Day organization. So there's actually there's a bill out there. It's called the Nonprofit Killer Bill. So this bill essentially is giving a grant to the Secretary of Treasury executive power to revoke any tax exemption status for nonprofit suspected of providing material support to terrorism. Um, this is crazy that is happening today. That this bill is even up, presented, because we already, as a country, we already have those laws in place, and so organizations like CARE, which stands for Council on American Islamic Relations, have really been the pioneers. There's other organizations that also are in the forefront, but CARE has really been advocating for civil rights, for advocacy and addressing issues such as discrimination. We have kids in our schools that are also being discriminated, not only by other children, but also by faculty, and so on and so forth. So CARE has been supporting marginalized communities. And so it is important for us to support these type of organizations and for us to also get involved. So 10 years ago, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, which is this event that I attended, was created, and it was created to bring us together to make sure that we, as constituents, we have the opportunity to speak to our Congress representatives of matters that are important to us, like this bill that I just mentioned. This time around, we also went around and asked for other Congress men and women to actually oppose to the new travel ban, right? And the No Ban Act. So we saw during the first administration, the first time that Trump took over in 2017, um, there was a no travel ban, and I mean, I was at the airport and people were being detained unlawfully. And so this here came back up on the floor, and it is our responsibility as constituents, as voters, and this is why it's so important for us to be involved, to speak to our representatives and to the broader Congress group, to make sure that they know what is being presented. Some of the Congress people that we visited had no idea of this bill, and so it was very shocking to us that they obviously didn't know anything about this bill. And then the last one that I thought it's important to mention is, the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate. We were asking for them to end the genocide in Gaza, Sudan, China, and Burma, right? As we all know, 3.8, I believe, or 3.1 billion dollars goes to Israel every year. This is our taxpayer money, hard-earned money that is being given for this genocide that is taking place. And so we were there, and you'd be surprised of some of the individuals that we encounter that also were not aware or just disregarded. So it is not easy to show up and to be on the forefront and to go to these individuals' offices, but it's very important for us to actually be on the forefront as constituents.
I think it's absolutely crazy that people are just like, oh, well, like, we don't know anything about this. Oh, we don't, and what? I think a lot of times it's a lot of lack of knowledge of things that keep people from moving forward and keep them stuck. And it's just really sad. It's really sad. Oh gosh. The US, unfortunately, it never fails to surprise me. And I'm like, why? Why would it? Why nothing has changed, but good for you guys. I know, yeah, I can't imagine how tough that is. And it's really funny that you brought up, Trump's first term. And I remember that time I was in grad school and I was not even Muslim yet, but I was just astounded. I was like, what in the world is he doing with this Muslim ban? Because I had so many Muslim friends and it was still kind of new to me, but I was like, maybe I should wear the hijab during this time and just like solidarity. And unfortunately, I didn't end up doing that because my family thought I was crazy at the time. And then who knew, a few years later, I'd be Muslim. So,
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people enter Islam because of this, right? So Allah's plan is perfect at the end of the day. And even though you were not Muslim, you saw, because you have morals and principles that were instilled. And so this is something that we have seen from our Christian and Jewish practicing brothers and sisters. They have been supportive, and interfaith is also very important when it comes to social justice.
It really is. Yes, I think you need all the support you can get. We need to support one another. If we're all against each other, we'll get nowhere. And
Absolutely. And that's exactly what they want. They want us to be against each other. And so this is a perfect time for us to learn, for us to get to know one another, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Hajarat that He created us into nations and tribes to get to know one another. So, it's beautiful to actually eat foods that you've never eaten, to learn, to get to know your neighbors. How many of us know our neighbors? Oftentimes we don't even know who lives next door. And so that's also very important, to make sure to know who your allies are, and create that sense of community.
yes, and you mentioned it earlier. Islam teaches us that we should be involved in social justice. So, how do you think Islamic teachings influence Muslim engagement in activism and social justice?
So the Quran emphasizes justice, compassion, and the protection of the oppressed. It specifically mentions it, and so when I think about this, I think about Subhanallah. I think about zakat. I think about, if we all paid zakat, there would be no hunger in this world, right?
Right.
If we made sure that our women were be given the right inheritance as Islam teaches us, women would be taken care of. And so Islam actually is core principles is to take care of one another, to take care of the orphans, to take care of the widows. Um, and some of those core principles is looking for equality, to make sure that nobody is left behind, because in Allah's eyes we are all equal, regardless of our race, our color, our gender. And so again, this is why He created us so differently, because He knew that we needed each other, and we need to get to know one another in order for us, like you said, to become one. The fairness of distribution of wealth. I mean, all of these things, when you think about, we have right after Ramadan, or right before, the Eid al-Fitr prayer, we have that fitra, that if we paid that, if every household paid that, you make sure that the next day nobody would go hungry. Everybody would have a feast, because that's what it is, right? After fasting a whole entire month, everybody should be able to celebrate. These are times where we should come together. And so Islam does teach us and I'm looking for this specific ayah that Allah tells us, right? Allah tells us specifically that that even if it's against our own self, like if injustice is happening, right, that
Mm-hmm.
we need to stand up no matter what. And sometimes we see injustice happening within our own families.
Yeah.
I only have one child. I know you have one child, but there's sometimes injustice within children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you come and bring the core principles of Islam and the teachings of Islam. And what does Islam say? What does the Prophet, peace be upon him, teaches us when it comes to injustices, right? We know very well that we are not supposed to take from the orphans. On the contrary, if you give the orphans their rights, you're going to be like this next to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Islam teaches so much goodness, and I wish we had 2-3 hours to really dissect every portion of it. I'm just kind of throwing snippets here because of time, but the core principles of Islam is really equality, right? Equality and non-discrimination. Like, we cannot go around and discriminate. When we are praying in line, you don't know if on your right is a millionaire and on your left is a poor person. In the eyes of Allah, it's your piety, right? That's the most important thing to Allah. So it's not really how much you have, how much you earn, what car you drive, what house you live in. It's really, how are you being fair, that fair justice that we are talking about today.
And I think that's something that our ummah needs to be reminded of constantly. Like it doesn't matter what your race is, where you come from. Like we're all Muslim, and I think that's something people forget about, and we need to bring that back and remember that we're all in this together.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. I appreciate that we're having this conference, and I appreciate that we are talking about this because oftentimes we need these reminders. And what better day than on Juma, right? It's still early. I always talk about intention. Our faith is about intention. We have to be very intentional when it comes to how are we carrying ourselves in society? Are we being just to ourselves first and foremost, to our family, to our children, to our spouses, to our communities? And there's a ripple effect, right? Because if we carry ourselves in a certain manner, obviously people are looking at us. I can't tell you how many times I have an 83-year-old neighbor who always tells me I don't talk about religion or politics, but at the end of the day, we have more in common and our hearts connect on so many levels that I really can't emphasize enough that we really need to be intentional when it comes to social justice. Even today, wearing the kufiya, it's intentional. Everything is intentional. The minute that we wake up in the morning and we know we have to pray and we have to, thank our creator for another day through our duas, it is all intentional. And that is part of social justice.
Yes, intention is so important. Intention will get you a long way sometimes. Um, Obviously, you're an activist within the U.S., which I'm sure can have its own set of challenges. I think, there's different laws and rules around the world for activism. And I was wondering, what challenges do Muslim activists face in participating in like broader justice movements, particularly in like, post 9/11 context?
So you came into Islam after the first term of Trump's administration. I am a post 9/11 convert, right, or Shahada.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lived it in New York City, and it was very eye opening. I mean, that's really my introduction to Islam. I didn't know about Islam or Muslims until 9/11. And then, ironically, my birthday is 9/12. So I was in the city when things were happening. I'm sorry, I didn't make it to the city. I was intended to go to the city, but then I went to the city to look for a Quran. And I couldn't find a Quran because this city was obviously on fire and it was a chaos. But we as Americans, we take a lot of pride in mentioning that this is a country about being able to exercise your First Amendment, which is freedom of speech. Unfortunately, we're seeing it today, and this is post 9/11, and with everything happening in Palestine, we are seeing that is no longer true. And we have seen it with this time around with this administration picking up our brothers and sisters off the streets in the middle of the night, kidnapping them and taking them to detention centers, ICE detention centers. So freedom of speech is something else that we were advocating in Capitol Hill this time around. And this is why it's so important for us to get involved, because we are seeing that all of that is on the line. We have also seen, surveillance. We have seen Islamophobia on the rise. We have seen politically marginalized and communities that have been attacked at post 9/11. And so these obstacles often hinder our participation and make us think twice. Am I going to go to that rally? Am I going to be part of the social justice that my Islam is calling me to exercise? We are seeing different types of uh, leaders within our communities. Recently in Texas, I lived in Texas for almost 10 years before moving back to New Jersey, and they are now being under attack. There's a community that's trying to build a community, the Epic community, and now the political aspect of it is saying that they're not going to allow Sharia to enter, and that's where the level of ignorance, right? Because Sharia is my headscarf, Sharia is my prayer, Sharia has it's part of my everyday life. And so for individuals to loosely take these terms and not really understand what it means, it's very unfortunate, and we see it more and more. And that's why the Islamophobic is on the rise, and we see our brothers and sisters being persecuted. We know just yesterday in Manhattan, they were at a protest for the Nakba, and a lot of them got assaulted. When that is one of our constitutional rights, to actually protest, to actually speak up, freedom of speech again. And all of that right now is on the line post 9/11. So it is very pivotal for us to stand up and continue to speak up, especially us who are a little bit more privileged when it comes to being US citizens. Our brothers and sisters that are here on visas or are residents or what have you, it's a bit different. And that's why I say that, it hinders our participation. It makes us think twice. And the prophet, peace be upon him, tells us, right, that we need to stand up. And the weakest of faith is to hate it in our hearts. So somehow we can speak up, we can also hate it in our heart. And even though that's the weakest of faith, we are all participating. And we should not let this administration continue to attack our First Amendment.
Yes, I've been following a lot of that, what's happening, and it's just, I thought it was absolutely crazy that that was happening. Students are just being sent home. They've got visas and they're not doing anything wrong. So I don't know what basis they were saying, like, oh, because there has to be some legal reason. But even in mainstream media, they're like, well, they're not standing with Israel. They're speaking up against Israel. So we're sending them home. Freedom of speech is where? Where is it?
Right.
And it's like, and unfortunately, the president of the United States, when he wants something and doesn't get it, he throws a fit and does whatever he wants.
It's like
He's done it.
we have a toddler in chief
Yeah.
as and it's like you throw a tantrum and that's it, right? And it's very unfortunate, but we should never we should never back down. And that's why I say, we the individuals that are U.S. citizens, we need to be on the forefront and make sure that we continue to advocate and speak up for those that are not able to.
Yes. So, how can the contributions of Muslim social justice leaders be better recognized and integrated into mainstream narratives? Because obviously that's so important. We, as Muslims, the mainstream narrative surrounding us as a whole has always been negative, but is there something that we can do to bring us up to the forefront, especially social justice leaders?
Well, we definitely need to get involved. Alhamdulillah, I mean, it's not enough, but we have 4 Muslims in Congress here in the US. I was able to meet up with 2, 3. There's a new one, Sister Latifa, I believe is her name. And this is the most we've ever seen in our lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to continue to make sure that we don't fall short when it comes to I know within, and I don't want to get in trouble, but I know within our Muslim community, we're always looking for doctors and lawyers. Lawyers are good. Lawyers are good, but we're always looking for engineers and what have you. And all of these are good. But we also need reporters. We also need journalists. We need individuals that are going to share our narrative, because for
Mm-hmm.
too long, our narrative keeps being shifted into barbaric, and they are, I mean, these titles that we are given, it's absurd. It should not, we should not allow this. And the only way for us to be able to change this is by us being more involved. If you are not registered to vote, please go register to vote. Vote in primary elections. Don't just wait for a presidential election. Make sure that if you know that you are capable and you have everything it takes to, to sign up and be part of whatever role it is, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's Congress, whatever role that you know that you can help, you should go and fill in that paper and become a person that we can vote for, right? And so this is the best way, educating ourselves. I was just telling you before we started,
Mm-hmm.
we drank the Kool-Aid for many, many years. And what I mean by that is, as children, we were taught, and this is the example that comes to mind, Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was a hero. And it wasn't until my adult life that I learned, right, what a rapist, murderer is. I mean, all that you can say about this individual, but nothing of what we were taught about, right? So this is why it's so important for us to pick up a book. And
Yes.
this is Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. Pick up books, they're not very thick. Educating ourselves is super important for us to make sure to change that narrative within ourselves, to educate ourselves, to become aware of what's really happening. Get involved in your communities. Get involved in your organizations. CARE has many chapters. Get involved, see how you can volunteer. There's other organizations that are doing social justice work. And social justice work, it doesn't mean just Capitol Hill. It means getting involved in pantries, food pantries, serving the needy. There's just so many ways to help and to be beacons of light for these days of darkness that have been hovering over us.
Well spoken, well spoken. I hope that, someone out there who's listening, who's watching is like fired up now. They're like, I'm gonna do something. Even if you're not in the United States, I think just having the knowledge of what's going on in the world is just so important. So that you could talk about it and help educate people. Education is and knowledge is our most powerful weapon, right? You've got to
And
know
that's
what's
an obligation on every
it
Muslim,
is.
right? The Prophet ﷺ says that it's an obligation on both men and women for us to acquire education. And that includes, education of where you live. We are, as Muslims, we are supposed to abide by the law of the land. And therefore, we need to know what's affecting us as individuals, but also within our families, our children are going to public schools, our children, we are taxpayers. And so we need to know where our tax funds are going and what we need to do to make sure that we are not part of this genocide. So speaking up is vital in today's climate.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And, I can tell you that you're passionate about this. And I do wish we had more time, obviously, because there's so many things that we could talk about in depth, I'm sure. But just thank you so much. And, keep up the good work that you're doing and helping keep everyone informed and trying to make a change.
No, thank you for having me. It was wonderful. And I just got to do a plug in here, but World Hijab Day as an organization does a lot of great work. Educational is one of them. So I want to encourage everyone also to look into donating because we can do this by us making sure that these organizations keep going. And it's us who keeps them running with our donation. And that's part of social justice as well.
Yes, thank you for saying that. It's very true. We can't keep doing what we're doing without the donations. So it's very important. But thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Inshallah. Take care.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For everyone who's watching, join us next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll have a brand new topic, another speaker for you. We've only got 2 more Fridays left. I'm sad that May will be over, but Muslim History Month has been so much fun so far. So make sure you're following us on all social medias. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram, everything. Make sure you're following, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.